Welcome to First. I'm Mark Eichman along with Karen Smiles and Avi Wolfman-Aaron. Nichelle and Shirley are off this week. The health of the Delaware Bay is dependent on the health of its tiniest creatures. Their story as a part of our continuing water project.
Getting into college is tough for some. What if you had the grades but didn't have the financial resources to go to a good school? The Delaware program is helping those students achieve their goal.
And if your goal is saving money when you shop, then you have to meet the Delaware Diva. She doesn't give you attitude, just some good shopping advice.
First, your public media news magazine starts now. When talking about mid-Atlantic waterways, the Chesapeake Bay receives the majority of the attention. While the Chesapeake may touch more landmass, one shouldn't overlook the Delaware Bay and its importance as a major rest stop for thousands of migrating birds. It's also important for commerce and recreation in the region. First Look examines the health of the bay as part of our ongoing water series. Whether it's boating off the coast of Lewis in Delaware or fishing at Fortescue in New Jersey, the Delaware Bay offers a chance to unwind, relax, and enjoy the beauty of its shores. But how healthy is the water?
Our futures and our communities and our lives here on the bay are tied to the quality of the bay.
Tim Dillingham heads up the American Littoral Society, a national group focused on protecting coastal areas like the Delaware Bay. We met Tim along the Maurice River in Millville, New Jersey, not too far from the eastern side of the bay.
So much of the local economy and people's livelihoods depends on the health of the bay. So we're doing good things for the bay, we like to think, the natural life that lives there, but we're also doing work that benefits the local community, and we're sort of very consciously trying to tie all that together.
If he had to give the bay a grade, he says it's earned a D at best.
There's a lot of work to be done to restore the vitality of this bay so that we can benefit.
Back on the Delaware side, researchers are monitoring the health of the bay via some of its smallest inhabitants.
Certainly still concerns, but I think if you look from the past, it's going in a good direction.
University of Delaware professor Jonathan Cohen is leading a team of researchers taking a census of some of the tiniest residents of the bay, which make up the lower stage of the food chain, feeding larger bay dwellers.
We study these organisms, these zooplankton that are the larval stages of crabs and oysters and shrimp, and they're also organisms that are just in the water column, things like copepods.
Using nets like these, researchers gather samples from the bay about 4 times a year.
We sample a series of 16 stations from the Delaware Memorial Bridge, a little north of that, to about 8 to 10 kilometers outside the mouth of the bay, and a whole sampling grid.
Once they've collected their samples, they use a specialized water scanner to learn what creatures are present at each location.
We take those and we pour them onto a scanner that makes an image of the whole plankton sample, and then we use computer software to determine the identities of the individual species and their sizes within that large sample, and so we get very quickly a big fingerprint of that sample. Working with zooplankton is tricky. It has been very labor intensive in the past. So now you're starting to see the objects come up. So all of those are little copepods. It's a fish larvae. It's another fish larvae. It's a jellyfish. But at the same time, we're working on tools that are rapidly advancing the speed at which you can process samples.
This research hasn't been done in the Delaware Bay since the 1950s, when another University of Delaware researcher, Joanne Daber, did the first study. Cohen's been surprised by the resiliency of zooplankton over the past 6 decades.
One of the biggest surprises was just how similar the bay is from station to station to what was present in the past. There are some differences, of course, but I was really struck at how similar the species assemblages were, the abundances were, and sort of how things map out to historic species locations.
Mapping zooplankton populations now could also help scientists understand how these creatures will be affected by climate change in the future, with warmer and wetter conditions.
In warmer conditions, they grow to a smaller maximum size. Their bodies just work more quickly under warmer temperatures, and they become adults and mature at a smaller size, which is important for thinking about how much energy is transferred from one type of organism to the next. That's something that we're working on.
Cohen is also researching the effect that increased precipitation due to climate change would have on the salinity in the bay. More rain would mean more fresh water getting into the bay. That could limit the northern reach of some of these zooplankton species. This study can also act as an early warning system for invasive species in the Delaware Bay. Adult invasive may be able to hide easier, but when they're in the earliest stage of life, in their zooplankton size, they can be captured and identified a little bit easier.
So Mark, why has it taken 50 or 60 years between the studies of these creatures in the Delaware Bay? Well,
there's several reasons, and after being there in the lab and watching them do this very exacting work, separating the zooplanktons in the scanner, you really understand why you'd want to wait another 5 decades to do that kind of work. It's really, really labor intensive. But it's also because nobody was really asking these questions about what was happening with the zooplankton. Now Cohen's team is asking the questions, finding some answers. He's hoping to get an additional 2 more years of funding so they can get a complete picture of the zooplankton in the bay.
Thanks, Mark. A reminder that this report is part of a 2-year series on our region's water. Here are reports on WHYY-FM. Read them on newsworks.org and watch them here on First on WHYY-TV.
Coming up on First, the Delaware Diva shows you shopping tips and ways to save money. The Best of Delaware shows you the best places to spend your money and experience ducks at work. We meet the artist whose inspirations come from ducks in nature.
From the Delaware Education Desk this week, ever wonder what it's like to attend a prestigious prep school? This summer, about 80 high-achieving, low-income Delaware high school students got that opportunity. And it wasn't a matter of charity. It was to prepare them for the next phase of their educational journeys. St. Andrew's School in Middletown, Delaware looks like something out of a postcard, or maybe even a fantasy novel.
And when I first seen it, I was like, oh my gosh, this place is huge. It looks like the Harry Potter, the castle from the Harry Potter movie.
Kaylani Williams is a rising junior from Dover. Neither of her parents finished high school. She hopes to be the first in her extended family to attend college. And she believes living here at St. Andrews for 3 weeks each summer will help her do that.
It's definitely helped to shape me and mold me into being okay with being away from home, being okay with trying new things, being okay with meeting new people, adapting to people, building relationships with staff, and it's just a big family here.
Williams is part of the Delaware College Scholars Program, a partnership between St. Andrews and the Delaware Department of Education. DCS students study, board, and dine here on the pristine 2,000-acre campus, all for free. They attend summer sessions after their sophomore, junior, and senior years of high school, hopefully getting more comfortable in the environment as they progress.
Trying to show them that things can be different. The mere fact that we're on a boarding school campus, they get to feel what it is like to live in a college setting.
Tony Aline created Delaware College Scholars 2 years ago and runs the program. Though St. Andrews is technically a high school, it certainly feels collegiate, and everything about the program mimics college life, even the structure of the classes.
So all of our courses are Socratic seminar, so it's a roundtable discussion. So instead of students sitting in rows, having to raise their hand to contribute to the conversation, everyone's on the same level.
But it's because of the judgment, these eyes staring, not just any eyes, judgmental eyes. All right.
Some of these courses cover normal academic content, such as language arts. Others, though, focus on the college process itself. How to take admissions tests, how to write entrance essays, and of course, how to find the right school.
What we're trying to do with Delaware College Scholars is expose these students to the many different types of schools that they have. And one of the things that we do the first year they're there in the program is through the student advisors, we teach them about different types of colleges.
That information is critical. Studies show that high-achieving low-income students often never even apply to elite universities that look and feel like the campus here at St. Andrews. The phenomenon is known as undermatching, and the consequences can be significant. Too often, promising students end up at mid-tier state schools with poor graduation rates, and those that do earn a degree may end up paying more for it than they would have at a private school with more generous financial aid packages.
They'll see the in-state price for a school versus $50,000, $60,000 price tag on a private school. but they don't understand that there's different ways of getting scholarships and grants and different types of financial aid structures that at the end of the day could make the amount of money you have to pay for these different schools really different.
Delaware College Scholars wants its students to aim high, or at least know they can thrive in an environment like this one. Take Kaylani Williams. Before DCS, she didn't know much of the college landscape beyond her local state schools. Now, she's looking for something different.
I envision myself being in a small liberal arts college, specifically maybe like Haverford, Wesley, things like that. I have a focus for humanities and social sciences and things like that, so I want to be in a smaller setting so I could learn more effectively.
Williams still has a long way to go before she lands at the liberal arts college of her dreams, but at least she knows it's out there. This is the second summer of the Delaware College Scholars Program. That means the first cohort of students are about to become high school seniors. Hopefully by this time next year, they'll be making a smooth transition to college.
We are now in the first month of the 2016 fiscal year. The Delaware Economic and Financial Advisory Council had a big say in how that budget came together. This month, Dace Blaskovitz talks with the head of DFAC, Josh Martin. Here is Dace on business.
Josh Martin, what is DFAC?
Well, Dace, thanks for having me on today. DFAC is the Delaware Economic and Financial Advisory Council. We are charged by executive order from the governor with overseeing the state's financial situation. We look at things like tax policy, budget numbers, you name it. We are required to forecast revenues and expenditures for the state of Delaware.
Although independent, DFAC still very much influences the political process. Talk to that.
We are purely looking at forecasting the numbers. Then we give those numbers to the governor and the General Assembly, and they make those decisions on the budget and what have you. I will tell you that Wall Street, and I'm talking about in particular the major rating agencies, view this as a best practice because the DFAC function is totally separate from the political process. The political process occurs after we generate our numbers and give those numbers to the governor and the General Assembly.
So as we sit here in mid-July 2015, what do those DFAC numbers suggest and/or suggest to you?
Well, let me just take a look at my notes here. One of the things these numbers suggest is going forward, we've got some challenges in terms of things that we're going to have to do in terms of the Delaware economy. For example, our revenue projections for the next fiscal year are scheduled to only grow at 0.1% over the current fiscal year. This means that decisions in Dover are going to be much tougher next year than they've been in the past.
Give us one tidbit of good news and perhaps one tidbit of concern.
Well, one bit of good news is the personal income tax revenue category. Our personal income tax revenues are scheduled to grow by 4.1% in the current fiscal year. That's 2016. And next year, we forecast 4.6%. That is a good news, and it's an indicator of the strength of job growth in the state of Delaware. One concern that we have would be the fact that 56%, that's over half, of the elements of our revenue portfolio are inelastic. What I mean by inelastic, and I'm thinking about things like lottery and abandoned property, these revenue sources are not growing in comparison to the economic growth that we're seeing. And this is particularly troublesome. If you look at a graph of personal income versus expenditures, you see some divergence going out into the future. And this gives us a real matter of concern, and this is going to be an issue for the governor and the General Assembly.
Over the last 10 years, the state of Delaware's general fund spending has risen 50%, debt spending has increased 80%, and annual state debt service has increased 70%. At the same time, total employment is up maybe 3%. Personal income adjusted for inflation is up maybe 5%, and real total Delaware output has gained only 2%. Josh Martin, I'm a big fan, but with all due respect, that's not politics. That's instead math. That's not sustainable. What do you say?
Well, Dace, I had a feeling you might go there, so I generated some numbers myself. Admittedly, general fund spending is up. I show 49% in the past 10 years. But if you adjust that for inflation, we're talking about spending only being up 7% in that period. Look at employment growth. It's only 3% since 2004, but this ignores the recession that occurred between FY09 and FY11. The employment growth since the first quarter of 2010, it's been 8%. So that's a much better situation. Real income data suggests that personal income has grown 10% in Delaware since 2005. But what does all of this mean? This is exactly the basis for why Governor Markell appointed an advisory committee on revenues for us to take a deep look at the structure of all of the revenues in the state. We have a lot of inelasticity and elements of our revenue portfolio, a lot of volatility, and we still want to remain competitive with our neighboring states. We issued that report in May. Unfortunately, the General Assembly didn't implement a lot of those recommendations, but we think there's the kind of structure there which, if implemented, can really put the state of Delaware on a better footing in terms of revenues. As far as expenditures are concerned, I understand that the General Assembly has hired a consultant. They will be providing a report on spending, and we too look forward to reading the results of that report and the recommendations.
Josh Martin, Chair of DFAC, thank you.
Thanks, Dace.
Our thanks to Josh Martin of DFAC and Dace Blaskovitz. The fiscal process begins again in November with legislative hearings. Governor Markell's budget is unveiled in January. Just like the state budget, individuals look for ways to save money too. Social media is helping older folks both find and share their knowledge for years to come. Meet Antoinette Blake, better known to her social media followers as the DE Diva Deals blogger.
I consider myself a frugal fashionista. So if I can find a bargain, I'm going to share it.
The 53-year-old Middletown wife and mother works full-time and blogs whenever she can about fashion after 50, thrifting, food, and being frugal.
Blogging actually became something very personal after I lost my grandmom. We would go shopping, we find deals. It was so much fun. So I started Facebooking. But you know what? People on Facebook really don't care about, you found a deal on a coupon, whatever. So then I started blogging.
It wasn't long before Antoinette's hobby got noticed.
The Money School of Delaware was presenting a Purchase the Portfolio event at the Chase Center. So it was free, and I love free. I love cheap and free. So I decided to go. So I literally came home, I sat right here, I poured myself a glass of wine, and I started writing.
Antoinette says her blog post caught the eye of the executive director of the Money School of Delaware, who later asked her to blog for the organization.
After the Money School and then with the thrifting and stuff, other local event planners heard about me, and they would invite me to attend and blog about it.
That exposure led to a Best Blog Award from Delaware Today magazine for 2013. While Antoinette enjoyed the attention, she will attest blogging isn't easy, and you can't be lazy about it.
It's hard. You have to be organized. You have to want it.
She adds, you also need to be mindful that not everyone is going to like what you're doing, but she has a tip to keep you focused.
You do get criticism. You do find people that are trolls that just go along blogs and just make negative comments. But what I have found that's really good, if you stay positive, if your post and your blogging is positive and you stay away from those hot topics, religion, politics, stay away from them, you should be fine.
Despite the distractors, Antoinette believes the perks outweigh the negatives.
I recently went to California to do the Walmart commercial and campaign for Depend, so I'm in Women's Day magazine and on their YouTube channel. So things happen. I can get a sponsored post for as little as $50 to as much as thousands of dollars. So it's profitable.
Financial benefits aren't the only perks, she adds.
As you age, your body changes. And social media, to me, is like the end-all, be-all when it comes to innovation and keeping your mind active.
Above all, Antoinette believes the key to any successful blog lies in your passion.
First and foremost, whatever you decide to write about, because it is writing, it's literally writing, you must have a passion for it. Because if there's no passion, you will give up.
If you want to know more about Antoinette, you can visit her website, divadeals.com. She has also created a phone app. It's D-E Diva, and don't forget there's an H on the end of Diva. You can get coupons, product reviews, and other deals.
The Best of Delaware is one of the most eagerly thumbed through copies of Delaware Today magazine of the year. It's always a great first segment as well, so let's bring in Suzanne Loudermilk. She's the executive editor at Delaware Today. So Suzanne, we're not going to pretend that we're going to be able to get through the entire list, so let's start where everybody would love to start, at the party.
At the party.
Where's the party, when's the party, and there's a beneficial element of the party.
Right, the party's fun, but it also does benefit two great organizations, Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Delaware, and also the Delaware Guidance Services for Children and Youth, which provides mental health services at a cost that's reasonable to people. And the party is on Thursday, July 30th at the Chase Center on the riverfront, and it is just worth the price of admission. It is so much fun. Dozens and dozens of restaurants and drink people and other vendors, and you will find it from bottom of the state to top of the state. There's just everybody represented.
And it really gives you an opportunity to kind of eat your way through the list of the best of Delaware.
Wear your yoga pants. You know, you want stretch pants.
Right, those Thanksgiving pants you wear, those stretchy pants. That's right. So we're always big on food, and food seems to be one of the most popular parts of the list of best of Delaware. And this year we've got Nage, Aquasol, and Big Fish Grill in the first grouping. Why do those spots click with readers? Nage has been, you know, a standby at the beach for years. It's a training ground for some of the most excellent chefs that are around the area. Some are still there, some have moved on to other restaurants, but you can always count on getting a terrific meal. It's in Rehoboth. And Aquasol is really a find. It's right on the C&D Canal. Beautiful
so
spot.
It's a beautiful spot. You can sit outside and little Caribbean food. And you know, delicious drinks, and just spend an evening and feel like you've escaped somewhere special. And the next group we have Nectar and Fromage. What do we like about them? Oh my gosh, and Big Fish Grill, I just want to mention, was really good too. The Segru brothers have just opened up several restaurants, and their Big Fish Grill here on the riverfront and also at the beach, just amazingly wonderful seafood. And then Fromage is this great discovery. I was in Middletown, and right on the main street is this little cheese shop, and the owner, Chris Pride, takes great pride in his cheeses, and everything from European Bries to Wisconsin cheddars, and he'll be very happy to talk to you and give you samples if you stop by. Nectar's great because it's in Lewis, and it's a find no matter whether you go for lunch or whatever meal, but breakfast is a real discovery there. And then finally, last but not least, I'll look at this, our very own Shirley Min, and Editor's Choice this year. I know, she is. We just love Shirley. You know, she's just great on the air, and you know, we really wanted to reach out this year to more media people. You know, Delaware's so much more than radio, which is good, but you know, there's TV folks, there's newspaper folks, and you know, Shirley was, you know, our top pick this year. Terrific, and when Shirley returns this fall, we'll make sure she does this segment so that she can thank you personally. You remember the Best of Delaware party at the Chase Center is on July 30th. Go to delawaretoday.com to get more information. Thank you, Susie. Thank you.
Richard Clifton loves birds and all wildlife. He was inspired from growing up on his Delaware family farm. He's especially interested in painting ducks. He has won the federal duck stamp competition, and he's designed stamps for many states, including Delaware. First Experience introduces you to the Ducks Unlimited Artist of the Year and his special talents.
I've been painting now probably about 25 years, I guess. As a kid, I was inspired by my dad working in the fields. We were farmers. I used to draw tractors and farm equipment with crayons and color pencils. Somewhere along the way, got a little older and found myself interested in birds and started drawing warblers and other songbirds and painting them with a watercolor set. So as I got even older, probably in my later teens, I got into waterfowl hunting, and that was sort of then the transition that really got me going on a lot of the waterfowl and duck art, and then that kind of paved the road to becoming a full-time wildlife artist. Starting a painting is always exciting. And of course, finishing is also another exciting part of the painting, because then you've got it complete, you can sit it up, you can look at it. That's a good moment, makes you feel good. So I think what keeps you going or drives you is just the fact that you're creating this, and the better you can do it and the better it can turn out is just that inspiration. Just, it's satisfying. Our family were waterfowl hunters, so I knew my dad went waterfowl hunting, and he had to buy one of the federal duck stamps every year. And I would see the ones that he bought, and I was always inspired looking at those. So time went by and states started having contests. I did win Delaware, and from that point I went on in 2006 to win the federal duck stamp contest. Currently I'm up to a total of 43 duck stamps. This is the first year that I ever got Ducks Unlimited Artist of the Year award. And so that, you know, kind of almost like winning the federal duck stamp contest for me as a personal life goal as an artist. That was one of my career goals. I hope that they see some of the same things that I see. You can look at this and get lost in this painting and start to think, oh, I could have been there. This reminds me of a place. I think as long as I live, I don't think I'll ever get tired of watching ducks work. When they circle and set their wings and they're working a wetland and thinking about coming in, I could sit there and stare at that all day long. It makes you want to do them justice by, you know, painting an image that, you know, you feel like nature would be proud of.
The Federal Duck Stamp Competition is the only juried art competition sponsored by the federal government. The proceeds from the sale of the stamps and the state stamps go toward protecting wildlife and their habitat around the country. You can see more of Richard's work when you visit his website, richardcliftonwildlifeart.com.
Next week on First, the Americans with Disabilities Act turns 25. We'll have a report on the progress made in that time. That is First for this week. We thank you for watching. For Nichelle Polston, who will be back next week, Shirley Min, Ivy Wolfman-Arent, and Karen Smiles, I'm Mark Eichman. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.